Engines roar, brakes scream. In an instant, silence, then chaos. Twisted metal, flashing lights, hearts racing. This isn't a movie. It's real. Every frame tells a story. Get ready. The car strikes a deep pothole at top speed, one that acts like a ramp. In an instant, it launches into the air, soaring several meters before smashing back down onto the road. At night, a car cruises calmly along a dark road, but up ahead, a truck sits unlit. Before the driver can react, the car plows straight into it. At a busy junction, a van and a compact car cross paths at the wrong moment. The hit is abrupt, sending both vehicles spinning across the roadway. A car's brakes fail on a busy road, leaving the driver powerless. It slams into the vehicles ahead, veers off the road, and overturns after hitting a small embankment. The truck lost control and slammed into a car. A stark reminder of how quickly crashes can happen. A driver moves to overtake, pulling into the adjacent lane without checking ahead. But another car is already there, and the two collide instantly. At a snowy junction, a car turns slowly across the lane. Suddenly, another vehicle rushes in and strikes it hard, the collision shattering the stillness of the scene. A large cargo truck is parked at the shoulder, smoke slowly lifting from its bonnet as bystanders take out their phones, filming in shock while flames start to spread. Three motorcyclists wait at a red light, chatting and checking a friend's bike. One jokingly twists the throttle, and in an instant, the motorcycle lunges forward, flipping over with its startled rider. The bridge stands solid over the running river, a picture of steadiness. Then, with a sudden rumble, its framework fails and collapses into the waters below. A massive lorry hurtles down the road, unable to slow in time. It plows into a small car ahead, the size disparity making the impact devastating. A compact car loses control and crashes into an ambulance ahead. The blow sends the emergency vehicle skittering across the ice, sliding helplessly toward the shoulder. A firefighting helicopter hovers low over the lake to scoop up water. But with a sudden loss of control, it tips and plunges straight into the water below. The plane descends unevenly, struggling to regain stability. Then, in a devastating instant, it slams straight into the ground with immense force. A car swerves into the oncoming lane without warning. Within seconds, it crashes into approaching vehicles, turning the roadway into a scene of chaos. Inside the garage, a group of friends examines a motorcycle, joking and chatting. Suddenly, a spark catches, and in an instant, flames envelop the bike.
So I went horse hunting.
A car veers into the opposite lane, barreling toward traffic. Moments later, it smashes into oncoming vehicles, sending debris scattering across the roadway. Two heavy lorries collide with a thunderous impact. Moments later, one of them ignites, sending thick smoke billowing into the sky. A heavy lorry loses control on the icy road, swerving across the center line. In a split second, it crashes head-on into another truck coming from the opposite direction. At a busy junction, a driver fails to brake in time and rear-ends the car ahead. The impact flips the vehicle over, sending it rolling violently across the asphalt. The bus swerves wildly as the driver struggles to regain control. Moments later, it crashes into the roadside barrier with a shuddering impact. Two heavy lorries surge toward each other on the open road. In a split second, they collide head-on, a violent impact that leaves mangled metal in its wake.
I changed his mind! Oh no, no! Oh my god,
The helicopter starts to wobble mid-air, losing balance. Within seconds, it spirals downward and slams into the ground. A tranquil day at the marketplace unfolds as people peruse the booths. Within moments, a dense white plume envelops the vicinity, consuming everything and everyone in view. A luxury car blips its engine to flaunt its power. But the sudden surge backfires, the tires lose traction, and the car slides straight into a parked vehicle. A truck makes a turn with a long metal beam jutting from its bed. The beam spans the roadway, and the car behind plows straight into it, unable to stop in time. At a busy junction, a bus approaches too fast to stop in time. It slams into a small car ahead, a moment of misjudgment with devastating consequences. A car hauls another vehicle on a trailer down the highway. Suddenly, the trailer begins fishtailing wildly, and within seconds, it overturns, pulling both the car and its driver into a violent rollover. Two cars enter the junction from different directions. Neither gives way, and their crash sends a sharp jolt through the crossing. A motorcyclist rides too close to the riverbank. At the last moment, his friend leaps off, but the bike and its rider plunge straight into the water. The car ahead begins to weave unpredictably. Moments later, the driver behind can't react in time, and a sudden crash ensues. The aircraft sails serenely through the air until something abruptly fails. Losing command, it dives toward the earth and detonates on contact. Here, a speeding car slams into a truck at full force, yet remarkably, everyone survived. An intoxicated driver zigzags down the street in mayhem. One after another, parked cars fall prey to his reckless route. The car's driver dozed off and drifted into the opposing lane. The truck struck at top speed, leaving no chance to get away. A car vaulted through the air above the road. Not Superman, not a meteor, but an actual vehicle hurtling at full speed. One rash maneuver triggers calamity. After being cut off, the second motorist loses control and crashes into a roadside fence. An ordinary day on the roadway turns chaotic in a heartbeat as two vehicles smash together. One erupts in flames while stunned motorists hurry to assist from a safe distance. At a snowy junction, one car blasts through without slowing down. In an instant, it slams into another vehicle, the crash echoing across the frozen streets. As the truck rumbles down the road, a hefty icicle snaps off its roof. In an instant, it crashes onto a passing car, a chilling reminder of hidden winter hazards. A car hurtles along the roadway, wobbling slightly from side to side, when it suddenly spins out and smashes into a fence, scattering fragments in every direction. A tranquil street turns tumultuous as a car slides into a bus's lane. In an instant, serenity yields to disaster. A heavy lorry stalls in the middle of the level crossing. Moments later, a fast-moving train rams into it, ripping through the metal in a brutal collision. As the car races down the road, a sudden blast tears through the front. The bumper rips off entirely, scattering fragments across the asphalt. A car pulls out to overtake on a sharp bend, the driver confident for just a moment too long. Suddenly, the vehicle skids out of control, overturns, and crashes onto the roadside. A car carrier lorry hauling several vehicles loses balance on the road. Within moments, it tips over, sending the loaded cars tumbling across the asphalt. A small car surges ahead with no sign of slowing. In an instant, it slams full force into the back of a truck, the jolt rattling the entire roadway. The motorist tried to pass a bus, but misjudged the gap, colliding with a passing vehicle and causing a shocking, horrific wreck. Disregarding the red light, the driver accelerates, convinced he'll make it through. A split second later, another car slams into his side, a stark reminder that rushing on the road can cost dearly.
From Victor Martins, is he going to take the lead from Alex Dunn? Oh!
During the race, a single error triggers a domino effect. Cars spin out, collide, and stack up in a massive wreck across the track. The driver nods off behind the wheel, the car slowly drifting over the center line. When he comes to, it's too late. A truck is bearing straight toward him, and the crash is unavoidable. While overtaking on the icy road, the car loses grip. It slides sideways into the oncoming lane and collides with an approaching vehicle. A race car rockets down the circuit at blistering speed before losing control. It pirouettes violently, cartwheeling across the surface in a haze of dust and twisted metal. A passing car's dashcam records an unremarkable stretch of roadway when, without warning, a blazing crimson blast billows up like a mushroom cloud, saturating the sky with shock and awe. A stolen vehicle lost control and smashed into the fence, leaving a wake of devastation. A truck brakes abruptly, forcing the cars behind it to swerve, unable to stop in time. As it veers into the oncoming lane, a small car appears, and the crash becomes inevitable. A car cuts off a smaller vehicle, trying to force its way ahead, but karma hits quickly. It loses control, overturns, and tumbles off the roadway. A speeding car fails to notice a stopped vehicle ahead. The collision turns the parked car into a ramp, catapulting the speeding vehicle into the air for a startling, gravity-defying moment. The car in front keeps weaving, blocking every effort to overtake. Once it's finally passed, the driver tries to merge back in, but loses control and slams into a roadside fence. A pedestrian crosses the road away from the crosswalk, unaware of the danger. Drivers slam on their brakes over the icy surface, but instead of stopping, the cars collide with each other in a desperate attempt to avoid him. A small car travels too near a heavy lorry on a crowded road. In an instant, it's pulled beneath the enormous wheels, leaving no time to respond. The driver loses command in an abrupt turn. The vehicle veers offline and smashes straight into a pole with a brutal jolt. The rocket lights and begins its climb, optimism rising with it. But within seconds, a thunderous blast devastates the pad, signaling a disastrous failure. As the race starts, the car veers erratically across the circuit. Moments later, white smoke billows from its engine before it slams violently into the barrier. A truck hauls a car on a rope, moving steadily along the bumpy road. When it strikes a hump, the towed vehicle sways violently to the side, smashing into several parked cars, leaving a wake of damage behind. Losing control, the compact car veers onto the shoulder. Within seconds, it crashes into a passing truck, the impact echoing across the roadway. In a quiet neighborhood, a manhole suddenly detonates beside parked cars. Thick white smoke pours out, engulfing the street within moments. A speeding car loses control and swerves off course. It slams into a row of parked vehicles, sending shards of metal and glass flying. A speeding boat slices swiftly across the water, but strikes a taut cable. In an instant, the vessel flips over, hurling everything into chaos. The car skids on the icy road, the driver struggling to regain control. But as it spins around, the rear end slams into a passing truck, the struggle ending in a violent crash. Inside the warehouse, rows of electronic merchandise sit tidily stacked. Then sparks appear and, within moments, flames race outward as panicked workers sprint to get out. The helicopter descends cautiously toward the touchdown area, but an abrupt lean turns accuracy into calamity as it slams down on contact. A car attempts to merge into the right lane, miscalculating the gap. It grazes the vehicle ahead, overturns, and comes to a halt upside down in the middle of the road. A car clips the rear wheel of a truck ahead while trying to squeeze past. The impact upsets the balance, and the massive truck topples over and slams to the ground. At a busy junction, two vehicles cross paths. In an instant, a loud smash disrupts the flow of traffic. A car reverses out of a parking space but veers off course. It grinds along the sidewalk railing, warping metal with each jolt. Two aircraft collide mid-air, spiraling out of control. Moments later, one slams into the ground and detonates in a massive fireball. A small car loses traction on the ice, sliding sideways with no control. Moments later, it slips off the road and comes to a stop on the snowy shoulder. Two aircraft converge in the clear air, their trajectories tragically aligned. In an instant, they smash head-on, one corkscrews out of control and slams down in a blazing plunge. A truck's wheel flew off and struck the car behind. The hit was so forceful that the car overturned. A heavy lorry starts to slide, its tires struggling for traction. Moments later, it swerves into the oncoming lane and topples, collapsing under its own momentum. A speeding car races down the road too close to the vehicle ahead. In a split second, it slams into the back of an SUV, the impact echoing through the air. At a crowded junction, two cars enter at the same moment. Neither slows down, and the inevitable collision follows with a sharp, echoing smash. The driver lost control and slammed into a building, which instantly caved in onto the car, entombing it beneath the debris. The driver strikes a loose tire lying on the roadway. In an instant, the car overturns with a thunderous smash. The race car clings to the rim of the circuit, showers of sparks shooting from its wheels. But as it grinds along the barrier, flames burst out, swallowing the machine in moments. A driver starts drifting in a supermarket car park, tires screeching across the tarmac. But control slips away, and the car smashes straight into the shopping cart bay. Two cars reach the junction from opposing directions. In a split second of miscalculation, they crash, flinging debris across the roadway. As one car gingerly enters the junction, another rockets in from the right. The crash is abrupt and savage, the sound of impact reverberating through the crossroads. The car miscalculates the gap and gently taps a motorcycle slowing ahead. Fortunately, the rider maintains his balance and no one is injured. A heavy lorry drifts too near the shoulder. It plows into a parked car, crushing the smaller vehicle beneath its weight. The vessel glides calmly over the water, its occupants at ease and unsuspecting. Suddenly, fire breaks out on deck, and the crew scrambles frantically to extinguish the blaze. The video captures a single curb where vehicles of every kind keep wrecking. Cars, motorcycles, even scooters. It's as if this stretch of road is jinxed, claiming one driver after another. A car is hauled away after being parked unlawfully, hoisted by a metal beam. But as the tow truck ascends a slope, the beam breaks and the car rolls backward, smashing hard onto the pavement. Inside the plant, all appears routine until a sudden plume of white vapor floods the air. Seconds later, fire breaks out, racing swiftly through the structure. The car slides on the slick road and drifts across the center line. In the next moment, it crashes head-on with an approaching vehicle. At a congested junction, the bus struggles to stop in time. In a heartbeat, it collides with a compact car ahead, the impact reverberating through the crossing. Two cars approach the junction from different directions. In a moment of misjudgment, they slam together hard at the crossing. A cyclist crosses the road without getting off. The car ahead brakes sharply to avoid hitting him, but the vehicle behind can't stop in time and crashes into it. A car makes an unlawful turn, forcing the truck behind it to swerve hard. The truck plows into cars waiting at the light before overturning, a single reckless act spiraling into a full-blown calamity. The car loses grip on the icy surface and starts to skid sideways. With no control remaining, it smashes into the line of parked cars. A patrol car races through with its lights flashing. Suddenly, it slides on the slick roadway and slams hard into the roadside fence. A speeding car barrels forward without easing up. In a split second, it slams into the vehicle in front with a heavy impact. Two cars enter the junction at the same time. Neither driver gives way, and their sudden crash sends debris flying across the roadway. Two cars end up in a strange crash, one teetering on top of the other's bonnet. When the lower car backs up, the one above slams down with a loud thud. A car suddenly swerves off the road and mounts the sidewalk. It smashes into a wall, narrowly missing a person lying just a few feet away. Late at night in a car dealership, everything seems calm. Then suddenly, one of the parked vehicles ignites, setting the entire room aglow with flames. A passing van drives onto the railway crossing without noticing the oncoming train. Within seconds, it's hit by the speeding train in a powerful, unstoppable crash. During takeoff, the aircraft struggles to stabilize. Suddenly, it pitches downward and crashes, followed by a massive blast that illuminates the runway. The plane picks up speed along the runway, engines thunder with power. Suddenly it comes apart and detonates, turning the takeoff into a blazing catastrophe. A heavy truck loaded with concrete beams struggles to keep steady on icy pavement. As it skids out of control, the massive beams spill into the opposite lane, barreling straight toward oncoming traffic. A car moves to pass, unaware of another vehicle right behind it. After a brief cutoff, the driver panics, yanks the wheel, and the car spins out, smashing into a roadside fence. The driver tried to pass in the opposing lane, but misjudged the gap, causing a serious collision, a reminder to stay vigilant on the road. On a snowy roadway, a car loses traction and starts to slide sideways. Within moments, it slams into a stone wall, scattering debris across the white landscape. A small car loses control and swerves toward a man standing beside his vehicle. He leaps just in time, landing on the hood as the car screeches to a stop. A car smashed into a pole and was badly crumpled, but the driver calmly got out and began stomping on the damage, trying to repair it himself. While attempting to park, the driver grazes the car behind, then taps the one in front. After a few seconds, the vehicle finally settles awkwardly into the space. A driver runs the red and rolls onto the railway crossing just as the gates drop. Moments later, a fast-moving train plows into the deserted car, ripping it apart on impact. A car suddenly halts in the middle of the road. With split-second reflexes, the driver behind swerves just in time, narrowly avoiding a serious wreck. A heavy lorry approaches too fast to brake in time. Within seconds, it plows into the queue of waiting cars ahead, metal crunching under its unstoppable weight. A large lorry barrels down the opposite lane with its rear door flapping open. As it passes a small car, the door snags it, hauling the helpless vehicle along in a terrifying instant. A woman steps off the sidewalk, oblivious to the oncoming fast-moving car. The motorist jerks the wheel at the last moment, only to smash into the parked car behind. Two cars charge toward each other on a snowy road, visibility fading in the winter haze. A moment later, they collide head-on, the force of impact scattering debris across the frozen ground. The driver nods off, his car gradually drifting into the oncoming lane. A truck approaches head-on, and the crash is immediate and catastrophic. At a quiet parking lot, everything seems still until the unthinkable occurs. A wall collapses without warning, crushing the parked cars beneath tons of rubble. A car pulls out to overtake, trying to gain just a few seconds. But the hazardous move ends in a head-on crash with an approaching vehicle. As a moose darts across the icy road, the bus driver swerves to avoid it. The massive vehicle skids uncontrollably, sliding sideways over the frozen surface. On a frozen stretch of road, two cars race toward each other with little visibility. In an instant, they collide head-on, the brutal force of the crash echoing through the winter air.
Stuwa, rondo jest jego, nie?
Patrz, dzwon,
Patrz!
dzwon.
At a snowy junction, two cars approach the crossing. One fails to brake in time and skids straight into the other, causing a cold, crunching crash. A truck drives beneath a bridge, misjudging its clearance. The roof scrapes the underside, sending bits of concrete crumbling down from above. The camera sweeps across a tranquil horizon. In the distance, a colossal fireball blossoms, climbing into the sky like a blazing mushroom cloud. The driver abruptly veers into the adjacent lane without warning. The car behind slams into its side, sending the vehicle rolling over with a deafening crash. A van tries to cross the railway just as the barriers descend, trapping it on the tracks. With nowhere to go, the driver can only wait until a speeding train plows into the rear of the vehicle. The SUV's driver nods off in traffic, hands still on the wheel. Moments later, the vehicle plows into a stationary car stuck at the head of the jam. The plane swerves off course, losing command as it drops. Moments later, it crashes into a barrier, sparking a huge blast that wraps the area in flames. High in the mountains, drivers make their way along a narrow roadway. Suddenly, massive boulders break free and thunder down onto the passing cars below. Traffic moves smoothly along the busy avenue when, with a sharp bang, the manhole covers rocket into the air, startling everyone nearby. A truck slammed into a bus at high speed, startling the man who was hurrying toward it. He might have been late for work, but fortune kept him outside. A reckless driver cuts sharply in front of another car. The startled motorist swerves, loses control, and smashes violently into the roadside fence. At a smelting facility, a driver carefully tips waste into the molten pool. Suddenly, the molten metal bubbles and erupts, splashing searing liquid onto the vehicle. By the roadside, a car burns intensely, flames devouring its frame. The heat warps the air as smoke billows into the cold sky, a haunting sight of devastation. A small car cuts sharply in front of a truck, forcing the driver to swerve left. The truck smashes into another alongside it, while the reckless car speeds away from the scene. An ambulance barrels through a red light, sirens wailing. but a speeding car enters the same junction, colliding with it and flipping the ambulance onto its side. Losing control on the slick road, the car slides into the opposite lane. A moment later, it smashes into an approaching vehicle with tremendous force. The Ferris wheel rotates slowly against the sky, lights shimmering in the dusk. Then flames appear on one of the gondolas, and horrified spectators record the unfolding calamity on their phones. Crazy crashes, epic saves. Don't blink. Like and subscribe for more jaw-dropping moments.